Hello, everybody. Episode 3 of Focus and Friction. I'm so excited to have this space. It's so fun to just have a place to talk about topics that have been asked about or that could help evolve your best version of yourself. So, thank you for taking the time to listen and subscribe and lean into what's possible. And I personally, current state, am going through a major pivot. Recently I just attended a 5-day retreat and it was at the best timing possible. I've navigated from the last 9 years of coaching in kind of like the macro physique, calories, fat loss, muscle development space, which I still love, don't get me wrong, into like the bodybuilding career that I had. I've been in the bodybuilding industry for the last 5 years. I did 7 shows completely. And I think I'm navigating into this. How do I lean further into the longer term, wider lens picture while incorporating what I've known to be true the last 10 years in this space? And so I'm releasing a lot of things right now. It may just be the moon cycle. I don't know. But I'm releasing a lot. I'm introducing a lot of new concepts. And I'm just having fun with it. I have to remind myself every day that like, this is what you love, like pour your heart into it. And learn more, do more. And when I absorb information, I love having platforms like this to share what I'm currently working on in my journey or what I've learned to be impactful, what I'm doing with my clients. Like I love just creative spaces to help us all like see the greater good. So kind of carrying on the mindfulness theme, we talked about mindful eating, mindful movement, and then today we're going to talk about mindful minerals. Like that just rolls off your tongue, right? Why I think it's important to look into minerals. What are minerals? How do I do that? And then the relationship minerals have with macros. And no, I'm not going to sit here and talk numbers with you, but I also like, let us not forget that macros is just short for food. Like we've turned macros into a diet or like a method or like I'm counting macros, I'm doing macros. I remember like a newer client recently had shared, yeah, I like did macros for a while and then like I fell off and I'm like, well, did you stop eating? Is that macros is food, right? Like it's comical because I've been there. But macros is food, macronutrients, protein, carbs, fats, alcohol, sneaks in there, fibers in there. And then you've got micronutrients, and those are like your vitamins, your minerals, and both of them work simultaneously to produce the most optimal performance daily. And when I say performance, I'm not talking just in the gym. I'm talking about your digestive tract. I'm talking about your sex hormones. I'm talking about your hair, skin, and nails. I'm talking about your mood stability, your stress management, your thyroid function. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I think without one, you can't have the other, and without the other, you can't have the other. So it's like they both work together. But I think oftentimes we forget about the mineral aspects. And I do believe in the concept that everything that we're talking about is supplementary, right? So when you think about even just the word supplements, they are supplementing when you cannot or are not getting adequate nutrition, minerals, micros through whole sourced foods. So food first mentality will always be the name of the game. So as we talk about minerals and supplements and implementation, it's like hard stop. Have you looked at your food? Have you looked at your diet? Have you looked at not just like macros and calories, so to speak, but the bigger picture of am I incorporating fruits, vegetables, protein, carbs, and fats in an equal way throughout the day? Have I really tapped into my sleep and my stress? Are those two being managed in some way, shape, or form? Do I have an opportunity with some of the fundamentals of hydration? Like, am I getting my water in? And the processed food, the processed drinks, like, is that going to be something that I could play with, eliminate, understand where I'm at? Once that is looked at and covered, then you shift into incorporating like minerals and micros to really understand like what am I deficient in, what could level up my performance in life. And maybe before I even do that, how can I look at and think about the ingredients that are in my whole foods to inspire more minerals and micronutrients within my foods, right? So if you're eating the same vegetable every single day, like how do you incorporate variety and complexity within your meals to up level the amount of minerals and micronutrients that are in your actual whole foods? So cool part is after this podcast, you'll see some tools, some quick one pagers to like quickly reference. And the three things like really wanted to focus on are like herbs, like quick ways to like season your food and use herbs to up level the mineral content. Actual minerals, so some key basics that I love to recommend my clients, myself, anyone that comes in contact with me. And then food, like have you thought about like how these micros and minerals correlate to like even just being intentional about what food sources you're picking to provide more minerals in your food? So quick downloads after this episode, so enjoy. That's why like I love the Patreon channel, because I can incorporate downloads as you watch the episode. So that is coming right after this. But I kind of wanted to explain how to and why the minerals look the way that they do, and kind of how to start to build your approach. So again, did want to pre-frame the look at your food first mentality, stress and sleep, 100%. And then you can start navigating over to minerals and take a peek. There are a few minerals, I will say, that doesn't matter. You could benefit from them regardless of what your food looks like. And particularly for me, that's going to be magnesium and potassium, particularly the combo. Magnesium's interesting because there's a book of magnesiums. Like there are so many different forms. And so depending on what you're kind of like after, there's definitely one for like relaxation, sleep, recovery. There's one for like, and that kind of goes into like bowel movements and relaxing your GI tract and your digestive system to really help with fluidity of bowel movements. And there's also like a detox form of magnesium that when partnered with potassium, like they work really well together. And that's typically like the base of my wellness water and what I recommend to my coaching clients. But other than that, like you get into these like really interesting forms of minerals, and they have to be custom to you, based on, yes, your food, but then also like maybe some biofeedback indicators and markers, like what are you experiencing? And based off of what you're experiencing, you can kind of customize your mineral approach, your food selection on how you want to feel and kind of what you're looking to alleviate. So that being said, I will say that my go-to form and version, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen my wellness water concoction, which I can kind of get into more detail about. But I like to have powdered forms and very gentle dosages of minerals. So like, for example, you can get magnesium in tablet form, in pill form, and you can go on Amazon and just get a bulk bag powder and incorporate it into water. Particularly for me, it's a wellness water. But the less you can put your body through in breaking down capsules, or like whatever's coated on the vitamin or like the pill or whatever it is, you're actually just alleviating and encouraging less stress holistically. It's interesting. Like we think stress as like work, emotional, drama, fighting, all the things. Or even like workout, cardio, like what's the physical stress look like? But there are so many little stressors within your day that you can alleviate that make a big difference in the long scheme of things, right? And so like even just timing your caffeine could be like an alleviation of stress. And like the lighting around you, the clutter, the organization of your environment can alleviate stress. The amount of things that your body has to like break down can alleviate stress. So taking a look at ingredients and not being obsessive, but if you don't know what an ingredient is because it's like chemically manipulated or processed, your body probably doesn't either, right? And so you have to think of it as, it's not that your body can't break those down. Like, to be clear, xanthan gum, dextrose, maltodextrin, like all of like the processed ingredients that are typically found in food. Your body is a very, very intelligent thing. And it is very, very strong in what it does. So it's not that it cannot do that. It's just why make your body go through all of these loops and holes to break down and absorb nutrients, and spend all of its energy doing that versus absorption of high key nutrients. And if there's little things that you can do to avoid that, like, why not, right? And there's plenty of examples I can get into, but I think the first step is just to like look at the ingredients. I get some of my clients and even my family, they'll like send me like a food product, like, oh, I found this at the store. Like, what do you think? And they like send me like the brand, like the bottle, and I'm like, flip it around. Like, let me just look at the back. And then they take a picture of the back, and I take like my highlighter and I like underline like, what are these ingredients? Like, if your main complaint is fatigue and bloat and distension and gas, it's your body's way of literally figuring these things out, like these 4 things that I highlighted out. So like, if you could avoid an abundance of those chemicals, like, or processed ingredients, then like, why not, right? It's not about being like hyper focused and obsessive and I only eat clean things and I have to know exactly what's in my food. There's a balance and there's a boundary. I think it's like, I tell my clients, if you're gonna choose this processed food item, then like skip out on your next one, right? So like, I will share, I love to go to coffee with my husband. We find like independent coffee shops. We go get like our latte in a mug at a coffee shop or a bakery. And like 98% of the time, their milks are used with like xanthan gum and locust bean gum and guar gum and seed oils. And like, there's junk in milk. It's really hard to find clean milk that's not dairy. And like, quite frankly, like the cleanest milk you'll find is a cow's milk. Like, perfectly honest. Well, my mentor says coconut milk is the jam. And like the actual coconut milk, like the cream. Anyways, long story short, we go often and get coffee. And yeah, I know that the there's junk in there, but that's like my one processed item of the day, right? So if I know I'm going out to get a latte and I kind of know like, there's probably some crap in there, I'm going to avoid the sauces later that like come with xanthan gum or come with any like added stuff, right? I'm going to limit myself to like one of those processed things a day, or just be mindful. You don't have to be like, oh, I checked the box. It's like, just look at your day. And it's just as if you were focusing on like the 80-20 concept with macros, and like food choices, like, is 80% of my diet whole and is 20% processed? And they're equally important in my opinion, but it's just the same way when you think about ingredients and like getting into like the granular details. It's like, how do you find the balance of making decisions that are going to optimize your well-being throughout the day, and your energy levels and your bloat and your distension and your stress levels and all of the things. So full circle, when it comes to mineral allocation and implementation of vitamins, if you can get away with things that aren't, I wouldn't say processed vitamins, but you get what I'm saying. Like, if they're in hardcore capsules and they're very concentrated and dense, your body has to like imagine a pill going through your system. It's not just like it hits your chest and your digestive tract and then it goes down into your belly and just explodes to an extent, but it does have to go through a process of your body being like, ooh, what is this? And then like plays with it, right? Like breaks the capsule open, and like obviously your stomach acid has a way of like deteriorating the shell. And then like what does your body do with the shell? It's like, okay, well, I don't know that I need this. Do I need anything out of the components here? Do I need to absorb this? Okay, like what's in this? And then like, it's usually, if it's in a pill form, it's usually a really dense milligrammed amount of something. Like, I was just talking to one of my clients the other day and I was like, 900 milligrams? Like, that's a lot, like, for this, right? And like, sometimes we don't realize that we're also getting things through food and through natural sources. And so when we add on vitamins in capsule form, like, we're kind of like, we could overshoot, right? Like, I don't know that you need that much. Granted, your body's, ideally healthy at detoxing and get rid of what it doesn't need, but you get my point. So incorporation of minerals, I like to say go powder form if you can. And in addition to that, Amazon is your best friend. So everyone's like, what brand? Like, show me what you recommend. And yeah, there's some cool brands out there. Like, I love Thorne. Like, that's a really good brand. Pure Encapsulations is a good brand. Like, The Vitamin Shop brand is really good. I mean, Amazon, in my opinion, is one of the best places to look. And it's easy, it's convenient, and you can pretty much get everything in powdered form. And then there's some like intricacy ones, like for example, instead of supplementing zinc, which I think all females should look at their zinc levels and just ensure that you're getting enough zinc in. And enough could be relative for you. I'm not going to sit here and sit and prescribe certain amounts. That's not my role in this. But I would say zinc is something to look into as a female because it stabilizes your sex hormones and like the overall function of that pyramid of hormones. And a great way to get in zinc is oyster extract, right? So if you look at like what is the wholest, most purest form that I can supplement with that could aid my zinc deficiency? Oyster extract. I actually have powdered oyster extract that I put in my wellness water every single morning. And so that's just an example, but Amazon is your place to look. I will say that there are a couple minerals that I think anyone could benefit from. And it gets complicated and it gets kind of like overwhelming. And so sometimes people are like, screw it. I don't even know. I'm just going to take a multi. It's like, multis are good. Like if you're going from 0 to a multi, 100% pat on the back. That's amazing. Food first mentality, always going back to there first. Multivitamin, sure. But the cool thing about like really unpacking your minerals is understanding like what do you actually need more of based off of your biofeedback, based on what your current goals are. Like you're trying to have a baby, are you trying to get lean? Are you trying to lose body fat? Are you trying to control your stress? Are you trying to control your digestive tract? Like what are your goals? And then like start there, because it's interesting when you start to incorporate minerals into your regimen, you start to fix things that like domino into other things. So sometimes if you like bubble wrap everything and you don't look into specific things, you might just like, hey, if you fix your stress, you'll fix your thyroid function. You fix your thyroid function, your metabolism is going to be in a lot better place. You fix your metabolism and your thyroid, then your sex hormones are going to be produced more fluently. So it's like this domino of reaction. And so the cool thing about taking this approach with minerals and really like starting at the baseline and then adding on based on what you need, it's custom to you. And two, like you might be solving for problems that you didn't even know you had. And you might not be broken or need to be fixed as dramatically as you think you are, because you're not tapping into or that you could be tapping into like the little things that make a huge difference. I'm not going to overshare like my current journey, but like I am coming from the bodybuilding world, and we all know that coming from the bodybuilding world, there's a point where you have to stabilize your hormones because you got to sub percentages of body fat, right? Like being that lean is not healthy for a female. And so when you pull your panel, so to speak, and like really see where your hormones are, oh my gosh, like all the lights are going off, right? Like all the things, like digestion's messed up, you can't sleep, your stress is high. Your stress was high for so long that now it's low, and now your body can't produce cortisol, which is a whole nother topic we could talk about another time. But you have to understand, okay, like with all these lights going off, like what are like the controllers, right? Like what is the base of the pyramid of things to fix? And when you think about your sex hormones, like your progesterone, your estrogen, your DHEA, your pregnenolone, testosterone, all of that, like the base and the mother of hormones are your pregnenolone and your DHEA, right? And so if you can kind of tackle those and see where those are at, they will naturally domino into estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and all of those things. Same thing with like thyroid. People go straight to thyroid, but in reality, if you really condition and you take a look at your stress and how your body's natural cortisol levels are, and maybe even blood sugar regulation, you tap into those two things and you're probably looking at a healthier, more balanced thyroid versus jumping on a converter or like a T3, right? Or a T4. Granted, I don't want to sit here and talk numbers because it gets confusing and overwhelming. But my point is you can pull small little levers that make a big difference and kind of domino and waterfall into like bigger problems that you think you need to solve. So I'll say like the couple that I recommend to pretty much all of my clients is one, just the concept of electrolytes. I think we could all benefit from electrolytes. I think like one study showed that you need 8 ounces of water every hour of awake time. So if you think about the time you wake up to the time you go to bed and how many hours that looks like, and if you multiply 8 ounces, I mean, you're looking at a good amount of water. And the fluidity of 8 ounces every hour is like actually a really great goal, right? I mean, it seems really realistic and achievable. And the way I think of it is like if you go to a coffee shop and they have like that 8 ounce like kids hot cocoa cup, one of those every hour, I could totally do that. Like that's achievable. And then on top of that, for whatever reason, well, that's not for whatever reason, but sodium has gotten such a bad rap, and sodium's like not the problem. Like sodium is something that we are probably deficient in the right types of sodium. I think sometimes processed food comes with a lot of like manipulation and high sodium, and but like when we think about potassium and all of like your electrolyte minerals, potassium, magnesium combo is really good, chloride, phosphorus, calcium, like all of those things, like and considerably electrolytes. Like I just did a post on Instagram not too long ago with like a flip through of electrolytes. That alone, I think everybody could benefit from in some way, shape, or form. I usually start my clients off with magnesium, potassium at like 1/4 of a teaspoon once a day. And then we bump up to twice a day or a 1/2 teaspoon. Yeah, teaspoon. Like, right? So small. And the other thing to consider when you implement minerals in is start small and start to listen and like be mindful of your body. Like what's happening? What feedback am I getting from my body? Am I feeling better? My husband just started doing potassium and magnesium like religiously and like literally every day, twice a day. And he's like, Dalen, I like don't think I need pre-workout anymore. It's interesting because potassium and magnesium together have a really incredible way of hydrating your cells and the metabolism aspect of it, which then translates to your strength in the gym. And he's like, I'm so excited to get my potassium in before my lift. Like, this is great. And he's like, can I increase it? And I'm like, well, you can, but like write it out. And like, I think like the opportunity with the industry of like, I don't want to say healthcare as a blanket, but like sometimes we jump to like the minimum average dose. I don't want to say minimum, but like the average recommended dose of things, when in reality you could be like robbing yourself of getting away with like a lot less. And even just within my journey, every time that I've implemented like a natural form of like hormone balance or mineral vitamin, it's like, let's see what we can get away with at the smallest amount. It goes so hand in hand with like the method of coaching, right? Like if someone starts with me for fat loss, or if we're looking at their intake, I'm going to try to get them to eat the most amount of food and do the least amount of activity to see if we can gain progress in all of the markers prior to me even doing anything, right? Like, why would I chop your knees so quickly, right? Like, here's 1,200 calories and 40 minutes of cardio 5 days a week. Like, let's see if we can make progress. No, of course you're going to make progress for a couple weeks, and then you're going to hit a wall and be like, what's going on? Do I have to go lower? It's the same thing with like vitamins and minerals. Like, how can we get your body active and optimal on a low dose, pure form of vitamins and minerals, and then increase if and when we need to, depending on what problem you're solving. Like, there might be like a tailored approach of dosage. But I think finding your sweet spot of amount to like really balance out your energy. It's not uncommon. We come from a place of like, we need to like keep feeling better. Like, it's like when you like have a drink at the bar and you're like, give me more, I feel awesome. It's like, why can't you just stop and coast and feel good, right? We always like, well, this feels great, so I must need more. Like, this is working, so I need to do it more. Like, talk about like the exercise industry, right? Like, I'm doing cardio and I'm losing weight, I need to do more cardio. I can do more cardio. It's like, no, not really. Whole nother topic for another time. But I think what I'm trying to get across is figure out some like core fundamentals of minerals. Ideally for me, and like I said, there's going to be a cheat sheet after this podcast, but magnesium, potassium, electrolytes, like just in general, is something you could start with. As a female, I do think looking into like hormone minerals are something that you can't really go wrong with. Be careful with iodine and iron. I think those are the two things that you got to get really specific on you. If you do use MyFitnessPal, like you can go into the nutrients tab and really understand like where you are naturally deficient in. I like to do some of that with my clients of like, hey, like pull the nutrients tab and see like, where is your sodium level at that's tracked? Where is your vitamin C? Where are your minerals lined up? That's one of the best parts about MyFitnessPal. And if you don't do that, like do it for a couple days. And not to track calories or not to like have a goal or to track macros, but to like have more awareness on your nutrients. Get out of the phrase or the frame of I only use MyFitnessPal to like lose weight or to track macros. Like you could use it for like nutrient analysis, right? Anyways, some of the things you have to be careful with, iron, iodine, or something that like really be sure that you're deficient in that. And you could get a functional practitioner's advice, get someone like a coach that can actually look in and like see the details. But like chasteberry, selenium, zinc, manganese, like all of those I think could be beneficial for any female, particularly honestly. And I think I'm trying to think of like the other one that I was just thinking about. Oh, Triphala is a really good one. And Triphala is like an herbed extract powder that is really, really amazing and powerful for your digestive tract and just like absorption in general. So there are some things to think about, but I think start off with electrolytes and do some research on like take your biofeedback, look into supplements and try a different approach. Try a like low dose powdered form wellness water. Right? However you want to do it. I don't want to like blanket approach. Everyone, you know, has their own way, has their own life, has their own style of things. For me particularly, and I'll kind of end with this, my wellness water is something that I start my day off of with. I was the creamer queen. Can I tell you? I was the creamer queen of coffee. And I would wake up and I could not wait for my cup of coffee. It was like my flavored coffee or like my just Mr. Coffee brew. I had my stevia picked out. I loved my cinnamon vanilla stevia with like my cinnamon roll creamer. And I rotated the creamers with the seasons. And don't get me wrong, that's so fun. It's so fun. And like, quite frankly, like I probably still do it in moments, right? But when you wake up, you have a natural cortisol high. Like if you are functioning normally in the stress hormone department, you naturally increase cortisol when you wake up. Your body's just doing its job. It's circadian, right? It's like sun's up, time to go. And when you, on top of that, get your system filled with artificial cortisol, artificial stress, caffeine, coffee, your body is going so far up to just crash back down. So if you're ever wondering like, why do I crash around like 1, 2 and like I get so sluggish? It's because like you're kind of screwing with your cortisol. And so the best practice in my opinion is to let your body wake up 1 to 2 hours after waking. I know. Have your cup of coffee. Ideally with some protein. Like think about like what's going to hit your bloodstream first. What do you want to hit your bloodstream first? I think of protein like Elmer's glue. It like slows everything down. It like creates a barrier and a blockade for the sugar to hit your blood. Don't ever like start with carbohydrates right away. Like carbs aren't bad, but like think about it, like what's going to hit your blood first, right? So protein and coffee an hour or two later after you wake. If you're not fasting, then that's the move. The first hour or two, don't get me wrong, I think it's more of the ritual than anything else. And like the wake up, pour yourself a beverage, ease into the day. Like I'm right there with you. And I love that moment for me. But having coffee and artificial cortisol, like just continued to make my issue worse. Like I had chronic adrenal fatigue and cortisol spike to the point where it was so high for so long that it had to come down, crash. And then my body stopped making cortisol. It then trickled into my thyroid and my insulin resistance. And then why am I gaining weight all of a sudden? Like, why? Is it just because I'm reverse dieting or is my body sensitive? No, it's because like cortisol and insulin resistance are the base of your hormone pyramid. And when that's screwed with and that's manipulated, you're asking for issues with your thyroid, your gut health, your weight loss resistance, like all of the above. And so I was like, okay, I need to chill out. I need to not just screw my cortisol levels right upon waking. I need to think about something else. So the ritual for me had to stay. And as I started to learn more about minerals and like the amazing benefits and like my body is loving them, I started to do wellness water. And for me, I do a white, green, passion, hibiscus iced tea, and then sparkling water. and I'll put whatever minerals in at the whatever dosages. Usually I start with a 1/4 teaspoon of anything new, and then I make my way to 1/2 teaspoon, and pink salt inside the water. Again, like, we are naturally deficient in sodium and electrolytes, so pink salt first thing in the morning is going to get your metabolism and your electrolytes balanced. And by the time you do have coffee and food later, it's going to last so much longer. And then sometimes I will do like a flavored powder, and that could be like an electrolyte powder. It could be like Vital, I think it's called Vital Proteins, like has their like collagen powders. There are like nootropic powders that are fun from Genius brand is amazing. And they have flavors in like mango and raspberry and things like that. And if you're implementing something like that, you could throw that in there for taste. And if you just don't like the taste of the minerals, like throw a packet of stevia in there. Like, don't overthink it. Or like some juice. I did juice for a really long time. I did like a whatever cycle I was in my like menstrual. So like follicular, luteal, ovulatory, menstrual. I would know what season that is, and then I would reflect the juice off of that season. So I would start the day with like a fall juice, a summer juice, a spring juice. Your body, I mean, this is often another tangent, but your female body actually responds really well to like seasonal fruits and vegetables based on where you're at in your cycle. So juice is a really good one. However, I found out about like insulin resistance and like my thyroid dysfunction, and so jumping to sugar first thing in the morning was not the move. And so I had to remove the juice out and just put some tea and water and like a stevia to sweeten it instead. Mixed thoughts about stevia and artificial sugars. If you're interested, we could talk about that another time. But ultimately, wellness water first thing in the morning is going to uplift and regulate your metabolism, get your body ready for the day. And then who knows how you'll feel in an hour or two. Maybe you're like, I feel like another hour without coffee, right? And trust me, on the potassium implementation, you're going to get some good lifts in. I promise you. Potassium citrate, particularly with magnesium chloride as like a detox, and like they work 2 and 2. Pink salt, you'll never go back. Okay, it's 30 minutes. Trying to keep the time on lock. Excited for you to see the downloads. So check that out after this podcast is posted. And I'm excited for the next episode. Talk to you all soon.